Arcus arrived back to his rented study room of an inn after a long day of travelling through the town known as Harthington. He had been looking through the many shops for a particular tome, but would always come up short. He'd come back to an empty room and sighed. The only thing to greet him was the living piece of his soul that he had kept safe inside of a glass dome. The dome was shelved highest of the bookshelf of the room. He saw the shard of his soul as living, for it reacted to him, same way one would react to seeing their master come home. It wavered and danced inside of its dome, showcasing that it was capable of displaying emotion. Arcus supposed that he should be grateful towards this dancing part of his soul, for it was something to look forward to when returning to the otherwise empty study room, but he would have it no other way. He slumped in his chair at his desk and sighed again, leaning his head back and resting an arm over his forehead. It was a long day of searching, and to come up short-winded the Volcari even more so. As he sat there collecting his thoughts, he found his way backwards into the recesses of his memories. He came back to the time he was a younger lad, living at home with his parents. How he came to this point and the hardships he had to endure to get to this point in his life. Now he was an astute student of the arcane, but back then he was a troubled youth with a unique problem that was prevalent throughout his childhood. It was his uncle, or someone who proclaimed to be his uncle. He came to the House of Knighthood some time ago, seeking refuge from the war with the Kai against the Volcari. Now that Arcus thinks about it, the Min most likely lied about that just to get inside of their home and wreak chaos from within. And he did just that. For years the Min lived inside their home posing as family while he took the lives of both his mother and father. Once Arcus knew the truth, he sought revenge. But revenge would not come in the form of his own hands, no. It would come in the form of another's hands. A Dovkian named priest would answer his prayers for a way to put a stop to the monster that was named Mordecai. When Arcus was 11, he learned the truth behind the sickness of his parents, and for a solid year he planned to seek revenge on the one responsible for their death. He had the means and know how to go about it, but lacked the physical strength it would take to take down the much larger Volcari. Sure, he could have used poison like his uncle did to his parents, but he dared not sully himself to stoop so low as to use the same method as the cur that was his uncle. No, he wanted revenge using his own strength, but knew not how. That's when Priest came along. One day, Mordecai returned to the House of Knighthood covered in blood. This was usual for young Arcus to see, for his uncle was known for sneaking out of the house late at night and returning with blood splattered on him. Whose blood it was, Arcus never knew, but it did not belong to Mordecai. One night he returned home in a frantic state. Arcus heard a commotion from outside of his room. He peered out of the doorway to see a sweaty Mordecai rushing up the stairs and into his room. Arcus then heard the slam of the front door being forced open, and in from the darkness of the night came the figure of someone dressed in white. This Min was of a smaller build than Mordecai, and had blonde, sandy hair with blue eyes. He was garbed in white from head to toe, save for his leather boots that heavily cladded against the wooden floor as he moved toward the stairs and up to where Mordecai hid. There was loud noises of a struggle being had inside of the room that Arcus could not see, but he imagined a fight was going down inside. The commotion continued for some time before the door of the room was swung open, and the white armoured Min stepped out. Arcus saw all of this from his room, and when he saw the white-dressed Min appear, he ducked away, but not soon enough. The Min, now known to be a Dovian, looked over to where Arcus hid in his room and thudded over. Fearing for his young life at the age of 12, Arcus grabbed for his training sword, which was made of real steel, and armed himself in defence. Priest barged into Arcus's room, and before Arcus could react, Priest grabbed him by the arm and squeezed so tightly that Arcus was forced to loosen his grip of his blade. The blade fell to the floor with a bouncing ring, and Arcus fell with it, holding his sore wrist. He looked up at the Dovian, prepared to meet his own death by looking him in the eye, but instead of being killed, Arcus saw the Min kneel before him and placed both hands on his shoulders. "Are you all right, son? Are you hurt?" Arcus stalled in his response, taken aback by the sudden change in the Min's demeanour, which had now taken on one of concern over his well-being. This was baffling to Arcus, who had never been treated in such a way since his father was alive. Now this stranger comes into his home, possibly killing his uncle and asking him if he was all right. Of course he wasn't all right, but Arcus would not say so. He nodded, still holding his hurt wrist, and croaked an answer. The Dovian Min stood Arcus up by the shoulder and dusted him off. "Sorry to have scared you there, lad, but I had to move in quickly, lest you ran away or hurt yourself with that blade you carry. Though I imagine if you have such a thing, you might know what to do with it." There was a pause of consideration on the Dovian's face as he looked Arcus over, then looked towards the doorway. He motioned Arcus to stay where he was before he would bound out of the room and into the other across from his. Arcus did what he was instructed, despite not having any clue as to whom the Min was or what was going on, but he felt that he could trust this Dovian, who may have possibly saved him. The Dovian disappeared into the room where Arcus last saw his uncle dash into and closed the door. There was a moment of stillness before the Dovian reappeared and closed the door behind him. He ailed in his movement towards Arcus before his boot-cladded feet moved again. He grabbed Arcus by the arm and pulled him along. "Come with me, boy. You're not safe here." "What? Where are we going? Let me go." "Don't fight me, boy. You won't win. This is for your own good. Now do as I say and come with me without a fuss, yes. Tell me at least where we're going." "What do you mean I'm not safe here? What about my sisters?" "I can't just leave." "They will be in good hands, I assure you. Now quit your fussing and listen." And just like that, Arcus was whisked away by the stranger whom he has come to learn to be called Priest, the Dovian that would go on to further mentor the young Arcus well into his adolescent years, all the way to till his 7/10th birthday, before suddenly disappearing. After Priest's sudden disappearance out of Arcus's life, Arcus began to branch out on his own and teach himself what the world had to offer him. At the age of 19, Arcus joined the Order of the Red Flame in order to keep his skills honed and sharpened, but would not stay long due to clashing ideals between he and the leader who banned him from ever entering the guild. In his pursuit to find and harness all of the schools of Magicka, Arcus accidentally created Aros, a being of his own shard of soul. At 20, he found a covert group of assassins where he really put his knowledge of the blade to the test. However, he would not stay with this band of thieves and murderers as he finally found their way to clash with his reclaimed sense of morality. At 22, he leaves the guild to train on his own for a year. At the age of 23, he finds the relative of Priest named Deva, whom he mentors for a brief moment before Deva releases himself from Arcus's tutelage to find himself. During his travels, he meets Kaneda for the first time after she attempted to steal from him while he was holed up in a town called Riverside Dale.